It's Friday. It's Friday. Welcome to Sports Reports as ordered. It's Friday, y'all. Let's get ready for the weekend. Let's get ready for the Super Bowl. Mike Wilson, aka 25, coming at you with my main man, Raphael Rutley. As always, we are here. We are ready to talk about the Super Bowl. We are ready to talk about some NBA trade deadline. We're ready to recap this Hall of Fame that happened last night for you all, this announcement. We're going to get into some NFL contracts and how they are awful and how they are set up to and designed to screw the player. We're going to get into all that. And of course, we're going to hit you with that get it off your chest. What's up, Raph? What's going on?
Hey, listen, man, it's during Friday, a nice little week of work. I'm ready to get into these talks. I mean, the NBA trade deadline was exciting for a while. Like it literally almost made me forget that the Super Bowl is Sunday. So the NBA applause for stealing the headlines of the sports world for a whole week.
Yeah, they sure did, and I'm here for it. Now, granted, I'm happy about this Super Bowl. This is a great matchup, and before we get started, let me take a second to give a shout out to Arlington Spring Ranch in Columbus. Thank you for holding us down. Thank you for tuning in. But hey, we brought it up. It's Super Bowl week. Raph, go on and tell everybody how the Chiefs going to win.
All right. Before we get into the Chiefs, I want to get into letting people know about the nonprofit Broken Windows Initiative. You can follow it on Instagram and Twitter as a nonprofit that I started with sons and like a friend of mine. It's all about just helping people best way you can. Like I said, follow Instagram and Twitter for more information. And like I said, every once in a while I'll drop some gems on here. But here we're talking about sports, talking about the Super Bowl, and I'm talking about how the Chiefs are gonna win, not how Philly's gonna lose. It's a difference. I think Vegas has a spread at 1.5 for the Eagles, so the Eagles are favored, -1.5. I just don't think that they couldn't just leave it as a pick'em game, but -1.5 is essentially a pick'em. So even Vegas is saying it's a coin toss. I think what Philly does well can hurt what Kansas City does well as far as the pass game, because the way Philly rushed the pass, we talked about it in the game before San Francisco. They led the NBA or NFL in sacks by like 17 sacks, 15 to 17 sacks, somewhere in that range. Multiple guys had double-digit sacks on their defensive front. I just think that's the way to beat Kansas City is to lock them in a hotel room. That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, I just have confidence in the chemistry that in crunch time, Kelsey, Bieniemy, Reed, Mahomes, McKinnon, they're all on the same page to get that play. McKinnon picking up the block off the blitzer, Bieniemy calling the right play, Kelsey breaking off the route, Mahomes seeing it, Reed having the faith and all of them to make it all happen. That I think that is like a polarizing aspect to their game. And you got to figure you got 3 Super Bowls in 5 years, 5 straight AFC championships. He hosted all of them, 2 MVPs. There'd be no other team with those credentials that you would consider an underdog. So it's a little weird. I don't know if people are just jumping on Philly as like as a hype piece, or it's like they just feel like Philly just does everything so well in the trenches that you just can't lose. I don't know if I've ever seen a situation where one team has this recent resume, 5 straight years, their third Super Bowl in 5 years. The quarterback's just won his second MVP, and he's been in the MVP running every single year. It wasn't like he had a fall off year in those 5. Every year he was getting first place votes. Every year you could have argued that he was MVP over the guy who won. So with that, I don't ever recall seeing another team being picked to beat that team. So I got Kansas City. I don't have a score yet, and I'm still kind of trying to figure out like is it 1 possession game, is it 2 possession game? Does somebody on Philly randomly fumble that normally doesn't fumble? Something along those lines. Something's going to be fluky somewhere to give the definitive edge to Kansas City, but as far as like just pedigree, I'm going with Kansas City.
Okay. Okay. Kind of figured that. Okay. So, with that being said, out of all the games that we've picked so far, like going through the playoffs and everything like that, this is probably the toughest one for me to pick so far. The only reason I picked Cincinnati over Kansas City was because I just wasn't sure how healthy Mahomes was. And then I learned don't bet against Patrick Mahomes. All right. Now, with that being said, I've been saying it all year. Philly's been the best team in the league all season long. Their 3 losses, 2 of them came without Jalen Hurts. So they've only lost once with Jalen Hurts starting the game. And of course, that was on Monday Night Football to the Washington Commanders. But but back on point here. So Philadelphia can hurt Kansas City by running the ball. They average 4.6 yards per carry. Kansas City gives up 4.5 yards per carry. So, I think there's a little wiggle room there where Philadelphia can run the ball. If Philadelphia has to throw, they're in trouble. I think that if a team jumps out to an early lead, if Kansas City jumps out to an early lead, it's going to be a blowout. If Philly jumps out to an early lead, you still have faith that Mahomes can bring them back. So the first quarter is going to be very important, the first couple of possessions, just to get a feel for the game. I like the coaching advantage for Kansas City. I like the experience advantage because not only has Andy Reid been here before, but as you mentioned, Mahomes has been here before. They've won a Super Bowl together. Where I get a little questionable is Philly's secondary probably being the best in the league, the number 1 pass defense in the league. This might be the game, and I am not questioning Patrick Mahomes. This might be the game where not having Tyreek Hill might come back to bite Kansas City. So Mecole Hardman is out. He's on injured reserve. Yeah. Darius Toney is questionable, but I'm pretty sure he's going to play.
Yeah, they said he's running around like crazy at practice. That's what the quote was.
Yeah, but I don't know if he's in a position right now, and I know Juju was a little shaken up as well. I expect him to play, but I just don't know without Mecole Hardman's speed out there, if it's going to be advantageous for them to throw as much as they normally do against Philly's secondary. Now, Kansas City, we spoke about in our previous previews, they can run the ball. They just choose not to a lot of the time. And I guess when you got Patrick Mahomes, that's a pretty good decision. It's not like he's Justin Herbert or something like that. So, as I'm looking down at this matchup, Philadelphia, as you mentioned, the big sack, they're the monsters of the Midway, apparently. But Kansas City, has 62 sacks, so it's not as if they're in the 40s or whatever the case may be. They don't have as many sacks as Philly, but they're not that far off, so Kansas City gets pressure, Chris Jones and those guys, Jalen Hurts, this is where his mobility may come into play. We talked about it. You brought it up before. Jalen Hurts doesn't run as much as you would think, but he has that same ability as Mahomes. It doesn't look the same, but he has that same ability to keep plays alive. So this is a tough game. I see why it's 1.5. I agree that it should be a pick'em. If this was the NBA, see, here comes the gym right here. Here comes the gym. If this was the NBA, I would pick Kansas City to win because they have the 2 best players. They have Mahomes and Kelsey, so I would choose them to win if this was the NBA. But there's more players on the field at a time. I think Philly has the advantage at more overall units than Kansas City does. I think they have the better secondary. I think they have the better offensive line. I think they have the better defensive line. They have the better running back. So, from that standpoint, I think the only thing that keeps this game close is Patrick Mahomes. I think just having him will keep this game close. So I'm going to pick Philly to win begrudgingly. I don't want to go against Patrick Mahomes, but begrudgingly, just with all the advantages that I perceive Philly to have. I'm going to pick something along the lines of 27-23. Philly wins.
I wrote down the score, but I got 28-24 Kansas City. Like that's the score like that makes the most sense. I don't see anybody scoring 30, and that 28 seems like a lot, but what these teams and the way they can get up and down the field, I think you can get a quick touchdown. And what you were saying about McCall Hardman and not having Tyreek Hill, I think the last two bad playoff games we've seen Mahomes play, bad as far as like the totality of the performance at the end. You had the Cincinnati AFC Championship game last year and the Super Bowl against Tampa. And what Tampa did, they just played deep because the first time they played that year, they had Tyreek one-on-one, and he had 200 yards receiving in the first quarter. So then they just played essentially that Tampa 2, which is just cover 2, and then the linebacker gets deep. So you can't throw any deep seam routes because the linebacker's dropping, and then the safeties are over the top, and then the corner. So your vertical game is basically kind of rendered useless. And then your pass rush, because Kansas City in that Super Bowl against Tampa, they had like 3 offensive linemen get shuffled around. I think it was only one guy playing as an original spot. So the other 4 guys are playing in spots they didn't normally play. And Tampa Bay just said, okay, cool, we're going to play the shell. That's why they say shell defense, shell coverage. It just feels like a turtle shell. So we're just going to keep everything right here in front of us, and then you got to beat it. I think they had that. I think that same defense was, pressed on them last year against Cincinnati in the second half. That's why they didn't keep the lead up. They had like an 18-point lead and blew it. But a lot of teams played like that this entire season. Like everyone thought like that was the way to do it because they didn't have Tyreek. You'll beat them under, like, have to take underneath. The problem is they throw a lot of passes to tight ends that aren't Kelce. So Kelce's going to run these zones open. And then the guy Bell, who used to be a quarterback at Oklahoma.
Blake Bell, yep. Noah Gray.
You get these guys that are just out there catching passes, or you get Edwards-Helaire in the flat, McKinnon on the check down. So now you got McKinnon on the check down. He's one-on-one with a linebacker in the middle of the field. He makes a miss. That's 12, 13-yard gain. And now, do you just sit back in that same shell and let him just do it again? You got to switch it up. So you give him a different look. Now they run both tight ends up. They take Kelce. The guy gets hit underneath, and that's how they move the ball. So on those drives when they move the ball, it's those kind of plays. It's not the over the top. Because me and you would talk about Hardman. Like Hardman's so fast, like he's not making any plays over the top. I think maybe because the way they play, he's not much of a threat as Tyreek was.
Right.
Tyreek was such a threat, even if he stopped it short and he caught it. He was so shifty that now you got to worry about tackling him in open space. I don't know if Hardman has that wiggle, that sudden wiggle, but Kadarius Toney seems to have it. But it seems like he hurt himself on that in the championship game, when he did the hard little drop stop. He hurt himself. I'm like, he didn't even get touched, and he was out for the rest of the game. So, like I said, I think they've played that way this entire season and this playoff run. So Philly's going to have to get to Mahomes, or Mahomes is going to have to make a mistake in order for him to have a negative impact on the game. Because I think their game plan is going to be what everybody else has been doing, and he just won MVP playing against that kind of defense.
And I think that Philly will get to Mahomes, but 2 things that would scare me if I was a Philly fan is that Avonte Maddox, I'm not sure how healthy he is, so that'll hurt.
He's the one that's coming back though, right?
Yeah. And, but I still don't think he's quite 100%. And then the other thing that we kind of talked about offline is that hopefully, for people that are betting money on Philly, Sirianni doesn't do something stupid, because when you're playing a team against like Kansas City, and when you have the type of mindset that he has, you kind of get
4th and goal from the 3.
Yeah.
Score is 10-7. Do you want to go up 17-7 or 13-7? Man, we got to go up 17-7. You don't get it back down the field yet.
Right. And when you're playing against a team like Kansas City,
people make those choices.
Yeah, it's easy to chase points. Like we saw the Raiders do it on Monday Night Football. But
the Chargers do it last season. They just kept on. It was like.
Yeah, and that comes back to bite you because Kansas City may not be a lockdown defense, but they are very timely and opportunistic. They remind me a lot of the Super Bowl defense of the Saints back in 2009. They kind of remind me of that team. They do the bend but don't break, but instead of giving up points, they just make a timely play.
The
You know,
2016 Falcons were the same way. They're like, listen, Dan Quinn said that's why that's the reason Dallas defense looks so much better between that year when Mike Nolan was the coordinator and then they brought in Dan Quinn. He just kept it simple. So with Atlanta, they had a bunch of young guys and rookies that were fast. Like, well, just play fast.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about the coverage. Just run the ball. Everybody running the ball, and we can never go wrong. So that's why it was opportunistic. You get strips. You get to strip the ball out, stuff like that, because you just have everybody running and grabbing at the running back's arms and wide receiver's arms, and then Deion Jones ripping it out. So like opportunistic defense that works. I think that's perfect to describe Kansas City. Their defense is young as well. Then you got, like I said, Philly's defense, they're just so tough up front. It's just like if Mahomes slides out of the pocket 3 times, just slides. He gets through. Fletcher Cox comes up the middle. He dips under that and he just slides. And now running wide open 30 yards downfield.
And that's the other key. It might not be that big of a deal this week, but which quarterback is healthier? Mahomes did have the ankle issue. I'm still not sure about Jalen Hurts' shoulder, so which quarterback can be more effective, in their natural game without the improvisation, without having to keep plays alive, just straight up take the snap.
Which would you take? So Mahomes, if his ankle, do you think Mahomes on a less than 100% ankle or Jalen Hurts on a less than 100% shoulder?
I would probably take Mahomes. Because Jalen Hurts isn't necessarily the prototypical thrower to begin with, so every little bit matters. But I also like his receivers, so depending on the type of pass play they're looking for, it depends on if the referee is going to let Devontae Smith catch a ball that wasn't a catch, but that's a whole nother issue. But I think, Jalen Hurts just
dark room, so maybe he's thinking about that catch that wasn't a catch too.
Yeah, and then the intangibles matter to me as well, because Kansas City has been here before. They've been here the last few years, at least deep into the playoffs. Where Philly does have those Fletcher Coxes and those Sues and people like that. This might be their last shot. So from a motivational standpoint, that may help as well. So when we just look at it across the board, I think Philly is the better overall team. But I think that Mahomes is just so dangerous and so great that they're just always alive as long as he's out there.
Yeah, he can make up for whatever grade your offensive line gets, whatever grade your wide receivers get, your tight ends get. He by himself is like the force multiplier. So like I said, if they rush, somebody gets out of their lane and he just steps up and he slides to the left, where it's like, well, he's rolling left. He's not going to throw it. He's going to run. And he throws some little underhanded tight end or some underhanded check down to McKinnon or Pacheco. Shout out to Jersey, Millville, New Jersey. Isaiah Pacheco, you know what I mean? Pacheco. So I can see that working in Kansas City's favor. I think Jalen's going to run. He's going to run. He's going to get out of the pocket. I think when he runs with a purpose, because I think Philly runs with a purpose. Like, they ran the ball. They were running that RPO on San Francisco like it was a video game. Like, when I was watching, I was like, are they really running? Because then the next drive, I think it was the end of the first half, they ran it. They gave it to whoever was in the backfield 6 or 7 times.
And side note.
Keep it at all.
Side note. Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, stop it. Stop it. You weren't going to win that game anyway. Brock Purdy, last I checked, is not Patrick Mahomes. He isn't even necessarily Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, just stop it. Like, y'all weren't going to win that.
He's my son. Like, he's a couple years older than my son. Like,
yeah, y'all were not going to win that game. But let me ask you a quick question, though. Let me ask you a question. So I brought up the coaching experience. How much do you think that matters?
I think it matters a lot because like I said, we talked about this. The Giants playoff game, Philly goes up. I believe they were up 19. So I think it was like they just scored a touchdown to go up 26-7, I believe. And Sirianni he had the offense out there for the 2-point conversion, and he was standing at like the 1 or 2 yard line. And then called the timeout, and whoever he was yelling at, he turned back and he was yelling. So the camera was in his face. So he was yelling at someone. I don't know if he was yelling at a ref, a coach, a player, a fan, a commentator, like whatever. But he was like, I know what I'm doing. Like just unnecessarily cocky about it. He was like, just line up and kick the extra point and go up 27-20. I mean, 27-7. Unless he was thinking like, oh, because the book says I got to go up 21 points. I'm like, no, you were just fine with the ball up 13. Now go up 20 and keep your foot on the gas. So I think Andy Reid's not running down to the goal line for anything. He's like, I've seen this play 100 times. Even if they go for it. Have you ever seen Andy Reid's face on 4th and 1?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Real stoic. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Like he just knows. He probably does something like.
So as somebody that picked Kansas City to win, you brought up Philly getting to Mahomes being a thing, being something that could turn the game. So outside of that, what is your biggest factor that Philly would win this game?
If they could run that RPO away from Chris Jones or run Jalen Hurts away from Chris Jones, then they'll win. Because Kansas City's playing like 3 or 4 rookies in the secondary. I think I don't know if their linebacking core is like truly dynamic. I think they're really good players. But I think Chris Jones, the way he was moving around in Cincinnati and the way they were blocking him when he moved was very similar to how San Francisco was blocking Hassan Reddick when he was moving around. It was like, you got a game plan for that. So I think Philly will game plan for Chris Jones going to the edge or him inside one-on-one with Kelsey, whatever the case may be. So I think if Philly can run, if they can run the ball, like I said, away from Chris Jones, I think it'll cause frustration because he's going to get held. So if you're running the ball away from him, he gets held. They don't call it. I don't think he's going to go Joey Bosa and start slamming helmets and going bananas. I can see frustration well enough because Philly, like you said, they're running at 4.6 a clip. Kansas City gives up 4.5. But if the whole plan is to run away from your best interior defensive lineman and they're getting yards, they're getting 5.5 yards a carry, keeping drives alive, then you jump. Now the RPO game comes into factor because, like I said, in the second half against San Francisco, I watched one series. Jalen kept it every play.
Mm-hmm.
First half, he gave it up every play, no matter what. I don't think he was reading the edge at all. I think it was more of an inside zone handoff anyway. But in the second half, he just kept it 3 plays in a row. I was like, what you trying to prove? And I think that's something Sirianni might. I think he has that kind of. This one's for Frank, like when he went and won by in Indianapolis. So I think he'll come into the game with an axe to grind. Andy Reid did fire him. So I think he'll come into the game and be a little bit more. I think he'll make an emotional call. He'll make that 4th and 2 at the 48 early in the second. Let's go for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think he'll make that call before Mahomes will talk Reid into that kind of call. He's like, now we playing this.
All right, so LeBron style. If Andy Reid wins this Super Bowl, what does that do for his legacy?
Yo,
I hate that word.
Yo, take a note on my notes. No cap. That's what the young kids say, right? I wrote legacy ? I didn't know what else to talk about. I knew the legacy question was going to come up. I didn't think it was going to come up from you. I thought it was going to something like you were going to say, hey, they're always talking about legacy, but
I hate that word, but it just felt appropriate to ask.
It was coming this way. We've had our championships or overrated conversation you and I had before, and I don't know if we had it on this format, if we had it like in a pre-conversation, but I think we'll reattack that as we, have these GOAT conversations and legacy so-and-sos and whatever the case may be. I just think that he can't do a poor enough job in this game to tarnish this mythical legacy crown. So I don't give credence to just winning this game. Because it's the same argument we had about, we'll get into this Hall of Fame talk as well, like Eli being a Hall of Fame. I'm like, his career is documented at 117 wins, 117 losses. He just had 2 separate 4-game hot streaks, 4 years apart, 5 years apart. So it was like, is that enough? So I really don't think it's enough to really boost it. Mm-hmm. And I don't think Andy Reid can do anything to hurt it, because, like, okay, so this is his 6th Super Bowl, 2 different teams. He has 10 playoff wins with both teams. He has different types of quarterback. He had Michael Vick, Donovan McNabb, Kevin Kolb, Henny, Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes. He's had different assistants, 2 different. I mean, like, he just has so much turnover. To be this consistent with this much turnover, I don't think this game that happens on Sunday, I don't think it's needed to cement his legacy. Like, I think it's already cemented.
I don't think that it cements his legacy, but I think having the 2nd Super Bowl by the masses get him in different conversations than he may be in already. Because, you have people like, and I hate to keep picking on this guy, but, we got Rob Parker out here who always says, like, anybody can win one. You know what I mean? Which ain't true, by the way. Because Dan Marino never won one.
Plenty of people have won one.
Charles Barkley didn't win one, what I'm saying? But, so everybody does not win one. But I think that by having the 2nd one, I think Andy Reid gets into deeper conversations if people talk about the best coaches of all time or whatever the case may be. Because, I mean, right now, he's probably a top 10 coach of all time. He's probably in the top 8, whatever the case may be. But, but I think that a 2nd Super Bowl gives people something better to feel about when they're putting him on that great level. Now, I know that he's like the next active coach and wins behind Belichick, so that speaks for itself. I agree that I don't think this one game, change. Like, this is not a LeBron moment where, hey, he broke the scoring record, so he's the GOAT now. You know what I mean? This is not that moment.
Hearing that question, sick of hearing the arguments, and sick of hearing people, like, the way they was, like, chopping it down like it didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But the context of that question, you don't have to. You choose to break down the 38,388 points. That's the weird thing. But like I say, you would have to make a choice to say Andy Reid isn't a great coach, top coach, because you would only have his 3 Super Bowl losses. Well, 2 at this point. He'd be 1 and 2 in Super Bowls, because he lost 1 in Philly. No, he'd be 1 and 3 if he loses this one. Correct? Yeah, because he lost 1 in Philly. Then this would be his 2nd loss in Kansas City.
Yes.
So coached in 4 Super Bowls. He's been 1 and 3.
Yes.
But how do you get the 4 Super Bowls?
Right.
Because if you're not consistent in those in between years,
mm-hmm.
you're not coming back to coaching. You're not getting the Marvin Lewis like contract where he just keep coaching without winning in January, February at all. I don't know how that happened, but most coaches aren't getting that with one team.
Mm-hmm.
A Philly fight, I don't know how that fell out. I don't know if it just was a complete just internal, like, we need to shake it all up. And sometimes you're just a victim of that. But if the narrative is like, oh, he's 1 and 3 in Super Bowls, but it's like, yeah, but he's also, he could be like 3rd or 4th all time in wins, somewhere in that range. When he retires, he would have done it with multiple quarterbacks, different conferences, different eras.
I mean, it's not as if the all-time winner, Don Shula has 5 of them or something like that either. So last question, and this is probably one of the most important questions. How excited are you for Rihanna?
Sometimes, like, a lot of times, like, I don't really pay attention to the halftime. Last year I did, but it was in California, so the sun was up, so it didn't look as dope.
Yeah.
It was a rap concert with the sun up. Like, they had all the lights, and you could tell it was like, it would have been a crazy light if it was in a dome and they could turn the lights on, or if it was out here on the East Coast and it was dark by then. But I can't imagine, unless she brings out more people, unless it's like, somebody pops up from a hole in the floor, Chris Brown, or like Britney Spears comes down in it just, the halftime show it's not even. It's just basically a concert snippet of a show I'm not going to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to your concert. Like, I'm not going to see a single. Like, I'm not a big concert person anyway, but I'm not going to your concert. So why are you just giving me a snippet? Like, do a show. Like, put a show on. Like, I think my favorite halftime show, and nobody ever talks about it, but I'm gonna try to make sure I get everybody right. I think it's Diddy, Missy, Nelly, NSYNC, Aerosmith, Britney Spears. Had to be another rock or pop act, but it was like Nelly and the Saint Lunatics. I think it was Diddy and they just were like vibing on stage. I remember I think his name's Steve Perry, the guitarist. He came down. Joe Perry, I believe his name is. He came down. He's playing the guitar, and I think Nelly and Britney Spears were walking down the runway with him while he's playing the guitar. Like, that's dope. Like, that's what the show should be. It shouldn't just be like last year, 50 Cent hanging off of the thing like he was doing his video from 03. Like, y'all couldn't get more creative than that. It just seemed like they only. I guess this is my get off my chest. I don't know.
I don't know how I got the name 2-5 when you're the only person that I've ever heard criticize that performance from last year.
Yo, because I think people didn't look at it objectively. I thought it was old hip hop karaoke.
Well, I mean, I don't want no judgment from the Black community or anything, but Katy Perry stood out to me. That happened.
Dark or whatever.
Her performance stood out to me. I mean, there might have been some other reasons at play, but her performance stood out to me. And of course Prince. That was a good one. And I'm not. This is the one that's
Remember
really.
It was Paul McCartney by himself playing the piano.
Yeah.
The Beatles. I watch any Beatles documentary. I watch any movie where the theme of the movie is the Beatles. I watched Across the Universe. I watched Let It. Oh, what's the one that just came out? When the song we've got. I forgot what it is.
I know this is the one that gets me in trouble because I'm not the biggest Beyonce fan. She got a great voice. I just don't typically like a lot of her songs, but her performance was awesome. At the Super Bowl, her performance, even though people tried to turn that into something else, her performance.
People turning all kinds of stuff, man. I saw I was watching.
They tried to Kaepernick her, but she's too big.
Yeah, I was watching a lot of Illuminati videos back then. That's when we were in Korea. That was the whatchamacallit, San Francisco,
Kaepernick in the condemned dorm.
in the Harbaugh Bowl. And I was watching a lot of Illuminati videos on YouTube at work at night, and it always points to hip hop artists or whatever. I'm off on a tangent, but it's our show. We can do what we want. So this guy that was on shift with, I was like, yo, you gotta come watch some of this ridiculous stuff with me that I'm seeing. So he's coming. This guy named Huffy. He's a Raiders fan, Greg Huffy. So he came in. We're sitting there. We're watching it, right? So we're watching all these videos. So every night we were coming to work, we would watch one of these videos, 10, 15 minutes to laugh about it. So then we're watching the halftime show. Cause my whole shop's together. Korea, the game came on like 10 a.m. or something like that.
Yeah.
So we're all eating wings, drinking whatever. Halftime show comes on. Beyonce does the diamond, the dynasty sign.
Yeah.
So, but that was like a big Illuminati sign according to these YouTube videos we're watching.
Right.
So we're watching on this big TV in the quad. And as soon as she did it, Huffy turned to me. He was like, "You see that?" They were pointing out to her. So then we get to work that night. So we go to work that night. I'm logging onto the computer. He walks in the office. He goes, "Go to Yahoo right now." So open up Yahoo, and the headline was like, "Did Beyonce throw up a satanic?"
Yes.
Yeah. We were dying because it's like I said, that's a good Super Bowl.
And shout out to the Coonsan, buffalo chicken pizza too. Gotta get that out there. Yeah. But let's get back on track here. Let's get back.
Yeah,
let's get back on track here. So
if you've been Korea,
So are the Suns going to win the NBA title?
Listen, man, I don't know why y'all not more afraid that they are. They're out double. If you think because I've been watching, like I said, we watch these podcasts all week. We talk about it. We have our sports group, even though sometimes people don't talk about sports. So when I saw the trade, I thought they gave up 8 because I woke up like everybody else. 6
You would have
o'clock.
thought they had to.
As soon as I read it, KD to the Suns, I'm like, okay, they must have traded Ayton. And then I looked, I was looking at my phone, and it was early, that's a couple hours early before I get up for work. And I was like, they didn't give up Ayton? So I'm like, that means, did they give up Chris Paul? I'm like, they didn't give Chris Paul? And I was like, yo, are you serious? Then who'd they give up? Kel Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, and 11 picks that we have no idea where you get the talent from to fill all those picks. So then I looked at them, okay, so they got CP3, Booker, KD, Ayton. You could put me out there playing the 4, and I think you got a shot with those 4 in the starting lineup, and then me, 5'8", 41 years old, out of shape, and I still think they got a shot because
Right.
4, because they all do something different. Booker's your mid-range young jumper, shooter, scorer, ball handler. CP3 is the floor general. Ayton is the lob and dunk, rebound and dunk. Every once in a while, post them up. And then, none of that worked. Throw it to the 7-foot-tall unicorn, ball handling, 3-point shooting, NBA champion, finals MVP. When your all-stars don't work, you just throw it to the dude who would have been on pace to pass LeBron by the time LeBron retired, because we did the math the other day. Mm-hmm. You got him out there. It's like, come on, man. It should be unfair. It's not quite Golden State KD, but it's close.
Well, I think it's not that just because of CP3's age. That's the first thing.
He got to do much.
No, I know. And with DeAndre Ayton, I always wonder, I hope we don't run into another DeAndre Ayton versus Monty Williams situation, so that's the one thing that I feel could derail them. You got the whole chemistry thing to where it's like, say they matched up with a team like Boston in the finals, I would probably favor Boston because they have that, ability together. They've been there, they've done all that, but when I go back to our Dallas conversation last week, I don't see nobody in the West that Phoenix is supposed to be scared of, so, I think they beat Dallas because, I mentioned last week that Dallas, or, the other day, Dallas is going to beat whoever in the first round. They ain't going to beat Phoenix if they play Phoenix in the first round. But with that being said, as I look at Phoenix and I look at the West, all Memphis did was go get Luke Kennard. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that's a bad pickup because that's another shooter for them to put on the floor, so that is a decent move, but that ain't going to stop that. I look at Denver, right? They lost Bones Highland. They traded him away. You know what I mean? So you lost a scorer or a shooter or whatever the case may be. And you definitely, Michael Porter ain't stopping KD. Aaron Gordon probably isn't quick enough to stay with him. So I don't know what Denver, does against Phoenix, unless they just plan on outscoring them. I look at the Clippers, now you might be talking to me a little bit. I get to see Kawhi guard KD maybe, I'm here for all of that. I still think Phoenix will win, but I'm here for it. So I don't think that Phoenix is necessarily a lot to win the West just because of chemistry that we talked about. They only have 25 games left after the All-Star break. I don't know if that's enough time. I don't know what the load management looks like with KD coming off the injury and all that. And, we look back at Brooklyn and they only played 16 games together, so I don't know how many games.
Still is baffling to me that they only play games.
Yeah, so I don't know how many games they're going to get together as a full squad.
If they were 15-1 in those 16 games. No, it wasn't like it.
It was 13-3, I think, something like that. But it was ridiculous.
The NBA, if they could have stayed together.
It was ridiculous. But I will say, I know
Brooklyn that run the NBA.
You weren't necessarily as up on it as I was, but I like the moves that the Lakers made. I like Mo Bamba, 39% three-point shooter at 7 feet tall, shot blocker to help AD out on defense. But the only problem is playing with that system, you know what I mean? Does he just become a spot-up shooter more than anything else? So that would be I like D'Angelo.
Worst use of a 7 foot tall guy.
It would. I don't want them to turn him into Channing Frye. D'Angelo Russell, I think, is a good player. I just don't know if I like the fit, with this particular team.
He can't shoot. He's the number 2 overall pick. And he never looks like the number 2 overall pick.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't look like, he doesn't look like a bust. Obviously, he's had tons of success and he played on a lot of teams. I'm just, where is the breakout?
All right,
like, so getting traded.
So can I get something off my chest real quick?
All right, go ahead.
Portland, what the hell are you doing?
Listen, man, they ain't saying he leaving.
This dude has been the most loyal dude in sports. You know what I mean? And all I see, now granted, don't get me wrong, I do like the Matisse Thybulle pickup just from a defensive standpoint, but he ain't helping out, like in a real way. Y'all went and got Gary Payton II. I was about to say junior. I don't want to get it wrong. Gary Payton II, from Golden State, just to trade him back at the trade deadline for 5 second round. And what the hell is up with the 5 second round picks? But hold on. But Portland, you know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? Like, there's teams out here that obviously wanted to make moves. You could have got Mikal Bridges from Brooklyn. You could have flipped that. And then you're going to go trade Josh Hart during warmups. Like, what is Portland doing?
I'm telling you, man, we talked about this. I want to figure out how I get an internship in one of these offices so I can really understand, because I can see standing pat because you thought, all right, I think we're good. A lot of these other teams are making moves. They're bringing in guys who might have been injured. They're bringing in guys who might have been, quote unquote, a cancer on their team. They're bringing in guys with 25, 28 games left. I mean, if you're a team like Memphis that didn't make any major moves, I don't believe Milwaukee made major moves.
Hey, they went and got the one and only Jay Crowder, who ain't worth none of the second round picks that they traded for.
It's like everybody throwing a Super Bowl party, so you got to get all your stuff. I think Milwaukee already had their wings, they had the chips, they had the sodas, they had everything. And it was like, man, we have any plates? Hey, man, can you got some plates and some napkins? Like, cool. Here's some money. They ran out, got the stuff they needed. Now their Super Bowl party is set because they have everything. The Lakers were like, they got a text at 2:00. Like, listen, man, hey, we got to throw this Super Bowl party. So let's scrap it together. So let's go get the wings from here. We're gonna get this from here. We're gonna get this from here. I'm gonna call this person. Maybe
with Jay Crowder, the Bucks went and got the plates that, like, when the sauce drip on the plate, it seeps through the plate. But okay, with that thought in mind, what is the Lakers' ceiling? So they're 13th right now. Like, what's their ceiling?
I got the Lakers at 25-31, 16 to 513. Listen, man, the Lakers they might miss the play-in again. Because they have chemistry issues. They have their star. Their star is one of the oldest players in the NBA as starting. I'm pretty sure he's probably the oldest. I know Kyle Lowry's pretty close in age, and Chris Paul are pretty close.
I think Kyle Lowry's 36, but yeah,
so he's somewhere in that range. So you got an aging star who has a bad foot, but he knows he can't sit out the All-Star game. He's the face of the NBA, so he's going to play. He's going to do stuff at the All-Star game on that foot. Then you have your second guy that you wanted to be your first guy. Reggie Miller made a joke that said every time
he grimaces, he misses 3 weeks.
So it legit could be, if he strains something, like if he's like he said, I tweaked my back, and they have a game, they got a Thursday and a Sunday game, and it's Tuesday. They can go ahead and sit him down for a week. They're not even gonna try to get him ready for the Thursday or the Sunday game. They're gonna be like, we'll see how you feel next Wednesday on that game, whatever the case may be. So LeBron and AD don't play a couple of games together. Those are losses. Like, if you don't have, you can probably win without one, maybe, but it hasn't been like that. Hasn't been the case consistently where you can win without one. So if they don't play all these remaining games together, you can almost count any game either one of them misses as losses for the Lakers.
Okay, that makes sense. It makes sense to me. I mean, so out of the trade deadline, Is there anything else that stands out to you?
The injured stars. That's one thing that stands out because like Luka's not playing, but then they make a trade to add Kyrie, CP3. Devin Booker's not playing. I think he might have just got back to playing. KD's not playing to after All-Star break. I don't know if the Clippers are going to start low managing. LeBron's injured. I don't know what you're going to get out of these. Like Zion, is he going to come back?
He's not even playing the All-Star game.
Exactly. So it's like I'm not sure exactly what we're getting, but I'm more likely, if I had to bet, I would bet that the Lakers 10th at best, 12 is like highly likely in my opinion.
So if you had the
piece, I don't think those pieces really solve anything because you got the chemistry piece.
Mm-hmm.
So you either have to have all of them play with LeBron and AD, or you have to hope that if LeBron or AD doesn't play a game, that these guys that you brought in can mesh. Because you got to get them all integrated to your system simultaneously. They got to get integrated with each other, and so I think it's just a lot to try to do. 2018 Cavs, when they made that trade and LeBron went when he hit that fadeaway, the same fadeaway you hit to
the record-breaking shot, yeah.
That same fadeaway he hit on Jimmy Butler, and they traded everybody, and then that team still went to the NBA Finals. That guy was different. That 2018 LeBron was different when he was getting grabbed by his shoulders and still hitting buzzer beaters. It was like that guy was different. I don't know. I wouldn't even want him to ramp it up to that level because that has to be so hard to sustain. Like I can't imagine the strain on your body as an NBA player, but I imagine trying to rekindle what you were doing 5 years previous. And I see it working, not working. I'm 60, 65, 35 on all the trades working.
So if you had to pick a winner of the trade deadline, who would you pick?
I got 2 winners.
Okay.
Boston and Milwaukee. Because everybody went west. So it was up to y'all two. Like one of y'all representing the East. You don't have to worry about anybody else. So you basically just took 2 rounds of stress off by sending all those guys west. So I'm gonna say the big winners of the trade deadline were Milwaukee and Boston.
Well, don't laugh at me. I'm gonna say that the Clippers were the winners because I saw that Reggie Jackson and John Wall had the worst pull-up jumper percentage in the NBA. Both of them, and they got rid of both of them and brought in Bones Highland and Eric Gordon. So, I think that they improved shooting. They got some spacers out there, that are actually a threat. So, with the chance of sounding like a hypocrite, I take back everything I said. The Clippers will beat Dallas now.
I don't have the faith in Paul George and Kawhi as a tandem to do what winning the playoffs, for lack of a better word, is something special. Like I don't see them like locking in and facilitating that kind of run to where they another really good team.
I think Kawhi just woke up one day, looked into the mirror, and thought he saw Shaq. Because I remember Shaq doing interviews talking about, we're going to turn it on when the playoffs come. I have no doubt that we're going to turn on the switch. So Kawhi has this attitude of okay, regular season's here. I'm getting in shape or whatever the case may be. Playoffs are about to start. Now I got to ramp up. But then he gets hurt. You know what I mean? So
and aside, LeBron and AD healthy ready to go. I can see them putting up 60 with a purpose, like to win a game 120 to 117. I can see the two of them putting up 55, 60 points.
Right.
The Dame Lillard putting up 40, 45 points in a game where it's like, hey, we need you to go. We need you to go off.
They need that every night.
You know, Giannis getting you 45 points, 13 rebounds, 6 blocks, 10 for 11 for the free throw. Like just one of these crazy nights. KD giving you 32 points on 12 shots. Kyrie just going off. I can see all of that. I don't have recollection of a game where Paul George and Kawhi Leonard both went bananas. Regular season, playoffs, anything is like, oh, Paul George and Kawhi got you 65 points. Like I don't like if we had like a statistician or like some kind of crew in the back that could look it up. I don't remember hearing of them having a game like that. Definitely not in the playoffs.
Definitely not when they blew that 3-1 to Denver.
Exactly. So when we have AD hitting a 3-point to win the game against Denver in the bubble, and then LeBron coming back and playing well and getting Finals MVP, or the conversation was, is AD or LeBron going to be Finals MVP, because they were both playing at that level. I don't see that with Kawhi and Paul George. So no matter who they put around them, I'll never pick them.
Well, hopefully with these shooters now, the only reason I ever want the Clippers to win is just to, give it to the Lakers fans. That's the only reason.
Just to take your grandkids.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, just to tell my grandkids, I saw the Clippers win. It's just like the Jets, right? It's just like the Jets. I just want to tell somebody, because last night, side note, last night, the Jets got the offensive and defensive rookie of the year. So, yeah. I mean, hey, Jets.
Zach Wilson needs to keep his head up now. He needs to back his back.
Straight up, Jetropolitans, you are going somewhere. You know what I mean? Stay away from Aaron Rodgers, but you're going somewhere.
That's what Brooklyn problem was, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. Brooklyn was like the dude that normally doesn't get money and hits like 1,500 at bingo.
Yeah.
Now he don't know how to act with this money. Brooklyn hasn't landed a good free agent deal since they moved from New Jersey. They did a terrible Darren Williams deal, the Paul Pierce.
Hey, they landed Kyrie and KD.
No. They did not. They did not land. Same thing with the Lakers. They didn't land anything. Kyrie picked Brooklyn because it's New York and they had cap space and they had young talent. He then convinced KD to join him. The team has been sold like 2 or 3 times since 2010, because that Russian dude owned it for a while. Jay-Z had a piece of it before the stadium got built, and all of a sudden they're on another owner. How's the team? How many owners have the Kansas City Chiefs had? 1. The Bengals, 1. The Giants, 1. So it's like they're just poorly run. So what happens? They got Kyrie and KD and didn't know how to act. The Jets, you have offensive and defensive rookie of the year. You have a good staff. Don't go bananas and try to send 4 first-round picks to Green Bay to get Aaron Rodgers because you think you're the quarterback away.
So riddle me this. What is Brooklyn doing? So, like, in general, and I'm not a GM, but in my mind, if I trade Kyrie Irving and I trade Kevin Durant, we under construction. You know what I mean? Like, granted, we ain't going to get the number 1 draft pick or whatever the case may be, but I would imagine you're kind of starting over. Like, I don't know what grabbing Mikal Bridges, who I like a lot, I don't know what that does. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you're like a treadmill team now. Like, are you going to flip him after the season? And that's where I brought up Portland or Memphis as teams that could have made deals to grab him that could have fortified themselves.
That they don't need, they have no use for because they're not in the mode to need those kind of players yet.
Yeah, like I don't understand what the end state is.
No one does. I don't think anybody in the building does. I don't know understands what's going on with Brooklyn, hence why they've been sold multiple times, bought and sold multiple times in the last 10 years. Meanwhile, they had MVP James Harden, MVP KD, big shot Kyrie, all in the squad at the same time, and you couldn't get the right training staff together to keep them healthy. and you trade away all your assets to get him. The Lakers did the same thing. It's just I think that the owners of these teams and these like the big market versus small market. This is where I'll give you your small market, where it has some kind of leverage in this argument. I think New York and LA increases the value of the team because of whatever property and everything else that's associated with the team. So you have with the stadium, whatever property you have, whatever the training facilities, whatever you own that's with the team, I think that boosts the value of the team. So I think Joe Tsai, whatever amount of money, however he got his money, I think he's looking at Brooklyn Nets is like, oh, it's worth this much with these expectations that I need all these champions, everything else. So I got to do whatever. I'm like, no, you need to build your team. Like the team they had with KD and Kyrie, they could have ran with that. So the Lakers, same thing. LeBron picked the Lakers. The Lakers did nothing as an organization to improve their team. That's why these big market teams are marketably are awful, because the owner still sees the bottom line. Tickets for Madison Square Garden, $200. Any night of the week, no matter where they're playing, minimum. If you want to get close, 400, 450, 9,000. Like the tickets are crazy. Same thing in LA. Same thing in Brooklyn. So they're getting all this money, and all the moves they're making for the actual basketball team are terrible. The way all the people that the Lakers hired, Kurt Rambis, Linda Rambis, Phil Jackson as a consultant when he used to be the coach of the team and dated the owner. Like, come on, like you're supposed to get some neutral people in there that can make real decisions. Rob Pelinka was Kobe's agent. He should have been fired. But moves.
So where does the vampire formerly known as Russell Westbrook end up?
Yo, coming right back home to LA. Could be a Clipper. I think if they buy him out, he don't have to move his kids, he have to move his wife, and he can be in that building getting busy.
I'm still trying to understand why the Bulls didn't make a move. And then, inquiring minds want to know, has Pat Riley woken up yet?
Did he really sleep through a trade deal?
That's what they're saying. That's what they're saying. But anyway, I got another question for you. This is a different subject though. I've heard crazy people tell me that Tim Duncan was a system player. Was Rondé Barber a system player? Because I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, but when he got in, I wasn't like, finally.
We're gonna get a lot of that, because now the people getting in the Hall of Fame are people that we want to play as fans. We're not analysts. Like we can look at the stats on the end, but right now you can remember Rondé Barber's play. You can remember Tiki Barber. You can remember Zach Thomas. You think like, was he a Hall of Famer? Because we weren't getting all the games when we were growing up. We just remember these players. And if you weren't in the Super Bowl run every year, the playoffs, you really didn't get to stand out nationally until some time ago, like maybe 10 years ago, where they started like getting more games on TV, Thursday night games all the time. You're kind of like stuck to whatever region. So I think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to feel underwhelming because you remember the nickname Revis Island, but Rondé Barber didn't have that. But if you're a Hall of Fame voter or somebody else, I think you'll be able to like see with different lens, like they're looking for Hall of Fame kind of caliber critiques and stuff like that. So I think that's what I was, because I was looking last night. I was like, I was waiting for like the definitive like person to come out. Like I was waiting like maybe like Reggie Wayne or like Dwight Freeney. I was like waiting for one of them to come out, or like Pat. Like I was waiting for like this, like these guys that I kind of remembered, but like that were outstanding versus really good for a long time.
Well, see, okay, so pause. So was there anyone that walked out last night besides Revis? Because I'm gonna assume that you think Revis should have got in. is there anybody that did walk out that you were like, okay, they got that one right?
Zach Thomas, because you put me on to the information. I've just been kind of listening to you.
Mm-hmm.
You assessed it. You were like, hey, his numbers are very similar to Urlacher, same amount of time. He played undersized. So I was like, well, if you got a guy that went in first ballot and a guy who played in the same time frame who was a bit disadvantaged because of size, whatever the case may be, but he still was able to put up, like, I watched the little clip today. His rookie year, he had 180 tackles in 16 games.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because in his whole career, he never finished lower than third in total tackles in the league. And for his career, he averaged 156.6 tackles a season.
Nine tackles a game.
In his
8 a game.
In his lowest season, he had 146 tackles. So when I peel it back, because we brought up Urlacher, he has more first team all pros than Urlacher. Just by 1, 5-4. Urlacher has one more Pro Bowl, 8-7, but Zach Thomas made 7 Pro Bowls. He had more solo tackles by 140 while only playing in 2 more games than Brian Urlacher. So that's where the Hall of Fame misses me, because Brian Urlacher was a great player. Brian Urlacher is a Hall of Famer. I just don't see why the wait is so long between someone who was right there. And I know that it's more than stats. I'm sure marketability and reputation and all that. Because, Urlacher was on those Bear defensive teams that got to the Super Bowl. And, so that stands out, so it's easy to see why Urlacher got in a lot earlier than Zach Thomas did. I just don't know why Zach Thomas was still waiting.
Yeah, a name that I saw Marcellus Wiley. He was on, I believe he was on the Dan Patrick. I saw like a short on YouTube. It was Dan Patrick, and he was doing the rapid fire, like how you and I have our conversation. He was like, said Reggie Wayne. I believe he said yes. He said yes to Reggie Wayne. He said no to Steve Smith. He said yes to Dwight Freeney. He said no to Robert Mathis. He said yes to Patrick Willis. He said no to Rondé Barber. But like, I don't know when they recorded it, but like I said, I saw it today and I was like, well, you got that one wrong. But he's like, it almost feels like you have to be disrespectful when you say someone isn't, because if it's close, then they're in.
Right.
He's like, it almost feels like by you asking me yes or no questions is like, no. It feels like you're being disrespectful to that person's career, and it was like, that's kind of sucks.
Well, I thought
Patrick Willis. I thought he had a decent case, but as I look at,
but see, I think with Patrick Willis, I think he has numbers as well. The problem with Patrick Willis, and I might be overstating it just a little bit, for me, he's almost Terrell Davis, where like he did it in such a short window. He was great, but he did it in such a short window that it's hard to put him in over somebody that did similar things for 15 years.
Yeah, and he only played 112 games. So I'm looking at his numbers now. He played 112. He had 8 interceptions, a couple touchdowns, 16 forced fumbles. Yeah, 0 fumble returns for touchdowns. But his tackle total, rookie year, these are combined. So we got 174. Then he went 141, 152, 128, 97, 120, 104, and 34.
Patrick Willis is in the Mike Wilson Hall of Fame. I don't know if he makes the NFL Hall. I mean, I think he gets in eventually, but I'm not sure that he's a slam dunk.
He's 1,000 tackles behind. Wait, hold on. He's 800 tackles behind Zach Thomas, and Zach Thomas played 13 years and got 1,700 combined tackles. Patrick Willis played 7 and got 950. So he was on pace.
Yes, but it's the Biggie argument.
Last 4 years.
It's the Biggie argument. Like, he had 2 great albums, and they were really, really fantastic. but he had 2 albums. You know what I mean? I don't know what a 3rd album, 4th album, whatever the case looks like. So Patrick Thomas, like I said, he's in my Hall of Fame as far as I watched this dude play, and he's one of the dudes like at that position that stood out.
The club was the craziest thing I ever seen.
Yeah,
when he had working at the club. That was that was one of the first things that really made me notice him.
But me and you agree on Terrell Davis, for the most part, and I just think that Patrick. I just feel like he didn't do it long enough like, for example, next year, Julius Peppers is eligible. You know what I mean? Like, what do you do with that?
He played for so long.
He's getting in. Julius Peppers is probably getting in. If he doesn't, Freeney's getting in, and then Peppers probably getting in the year after that. And I'm sorry, Devin Hester, but, Phillip Rivers is eligible the year after that. I'm not saying I think Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Famer, but I'm just saying Ben Roethlisberger is eligible the year after that. I don't know what Devin Hester going to do, man. Like, I don't think it's happening. I've seen arguments both ways. I'm always in the middle just because I know the impact that he had on the game. But when I think about the other punt returners that he was in that company with, it was people like Dion, like that excelled elsewhere.
Someone that's strictly a punt returner, and then you essentially got to put them all in.
Yeah, you got to get my man Dave Meggett in there.
Dave Meggett,
Mel Gray,
F.
Joshua Cribbs.
You
know what I'm saying?
Patterson.
Corduroy.
Like, that's because that's his company. So unless you have to value that particular piece that they bring to the game, and I don't think you do, because does it really change the game if a team has to punt it a different direction? Mm-hmm. I mean, like, if you
first of all, before you go any further, realize that in the next 2 years, Marquette King is going to be eligible. So you watch your mouth and watch what you say going forward.
They just sent him out the door.
Hey, Janikowski is eligible in the next year or two too. But go ahead.
It'd be fun to talk about, but Adam Vinatieri's getting in. He's already in, right?
If he was eligible, I'm sure he is. I'd have to go look back.
And I think because the kicker, once again, you can't just be good, and it's okay. You can't just be good. And I think people in the Hall of Fame will feel the same way. And I think if you ask Patrick Willis if he had a Hall of Fame career, he would probably tell you no.
All I know is. So, Dwight Freeney. Because when we had the conversation offline, I told you when we first saw the finalist list, I told you that either him or Ware were going to get in. Not both of them. That either one were going to get in. But I thought it was Freeney because, so DeMarcus Ware, I don't want to take away from him. Because when, looking at DeMarcus Ware, he's top 10 all time in sacks. So you never want to take away, you never want to disrespect somebody that's on that level. But when I look at Dwight Freeney, for example, in his rookie season as Rookie of the Year, he led the league in forced fumbles and tackles for losses as a rookie. So that's first of all. He made 7 Pro Bowls. He won a Defensive Player of the Year. He was a 3-time All-Pro. He was the all-time team sacks leader until Mathis came along. He averaged a sack a game. You know what I mean? So when I look at it, in his 3rd year, that was he averaged a sack a game. Yeah. I don't understand, and this is where I guess where the limits come in. Like Dwight Freeney is a Hall of Famer, and it pisses me off because when we watch these shows, you brought it up before, the whole like if I have to debate your career and like what's the difference between a first ballot and a third ballot, so on and so forth. Dwight Freeney is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like,
well, not according to the voters.
Yeah, the voters can go suck an egg. Like, at the end of the day, Dwight Freeney is he's a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? Reggie Wayne is probably a Hall of Famer. But these receivers got a log jam. So I don't know. Do these dudes just sit around in a room and say, hey, we let T.O. in, we let Randy Moss in, we let Megatron in. Receivers were good for another 2 years.
Like I said, we looked at those numbers. We looked at Johnson, Torrey Holt, Reggie Wayne, Steve Smith. If you think Steve Smith is a Hall of Famer, but you don't think Torrey Holt is, then, or we'll reverse that. If you think Torrey Holt's a Hall of Famer, but you don't think Steve Smith is, and you get Torrey Holt in, he's going to have an argument like, my numbers are better than his.
And you're just going to let him in, and you're just going to let him in off of the basis before Steve Smith as, hey, he got a Super Bowl ring.
So Steve Smith gets in, or Reggie Wayne gets in, and they're like, oh, because he has a ring. Cool. And Andre Johnson's going to get in because I think people like him. And then Reggie Wayne's going to say, well, I got a ring, and my numbers are the same. And then Steve Smith's like, listen, I had Jake Delhomme my whole career, and my numbers are the same as these guys that had Peyton Manning. And Andre Johnson, like, wait, I had Matt Schaub and T.J. Yates and some
Tom Savage.
and they were like, well, this guy Torrey Holt, he had Kurt Warner, and the Holt's gonna be like, I got a ring, and I was part of the greatest show on turf. I changed football.
Yeah,
like Reggie Wayne, you wouldn't have your spot without me because I was the blueprint. I was the blueprint second wide receiver that was putting up wide receiver 1 numbers. So I think if the voters don't think all 4 of them are Hall of Famers, they're gonna just be tied to each other and they're just gonna keep pulling each other down. And then other people go definitively offensive tackles going.
And I forgot to mention. I got to say this real quick. I forgot to mention. And I'm sorry, Devin Hester, but Antonio Gates is eligible next year as well. So it's going to be tough sledding. And I don't think he's going to end up getting in unless down the road some kind of veterans committee, sort of like Art Monk, who unfortunately had to wait a long time as well. Darren Woodson, I thought, had a good case. Comparing him to Rondé Barber brought up some interesting things, where, like, I think Darren Woodson deserved to get in. I'm not saying that Rondé doesn't deserve to be in, but I think that people remember to play against Philly. He played in the Tampa 2. They won that Super Bowl with Brad Johnson as the quarterback. I think he got a little leverage with that. Now, granted, he played 13 seasons. He did make 5 Pro Bowls, so I'm not trying to make it sound like, he was a bum or whatever the case may be. But when I look at Rondé Barber, if you asked me, Mike, what does Rondé Barber mean to you? I would say, dude, if I had a son that was playing corner, I would love for him to study Rondé Barber. But then the next sentence would be, but he's not Charles Woodson. He's not Dion. He's not Rod Woodson. He's not, Aeneas Williams. And I don't want to do that thing. Because I know you don't like that. But to me, the Hall of Fame is the greatest of the great. You know what I mean? So, and I got to do it. Just, I know, So if I go Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, John Elway, you're like, okay, maybe Elway's not their level, but okay. If I go Joe Montana, Dan Marino, Aaron Rodgers, you're like, okay. But if I go, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford, one of these is not like the other. So people always say, well, of course, you're comparing them to the greatest of the. Well, that's what the Hall of Fame is. The Hall of Fame is the best dudes that ever played the game. So if I can't put you in the same sentence as somebody like Peyton Manning or Dan Marino or whoever that you grade on that top scale like that, then maybe you don't belong in the Hall of Fame. Like,
yeah, the quarterback's going to be tough. I think he's going to get his piece because he defended some of these spread wide receivers and things like that. But that's also going to make the case for guys like Steve Smith, who played NFC South against Tampa Bay twice a year. The matchups that he had with guys like Andre Johnson. And so people will say, well, I got the best of Rondé Barber in this game. And I got the best of these guys. And I have these stats. So I think it's just going to be a matter of who is going to.
Well, see,
someone has to sneak. Like, essentially, somebody's going to have to get, because what's going to happen, like I said, we're going to stop putting running backs in after Adrian Peterson because they don't run the ball enough. unless you can think of anybody else. I know we saw Ezekiel Elliott's numbers are better than Terrell Davis, but Ezekiel Elliott's not getting in the Hall of Fame. In the same 7 years, people are like, they hardly run. He's no good as a running back, but his numbers are more substantial.
Hey, Terrell Davis ain't lose his job to Tony Pollard.
Even with lose his job, his numbers are still higher.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any running back after Adrian Peterson that's getting in. So that's going to open it up.
So you being disrespectful again.
Who?
Frank Gore, third all-time leading rusher. I'm not saying that I watched Frank Gore and thought that he was a Hall of Famer. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he's the third all-time leading rusher of all the people that ever played football. You know what I mean?
We'll go with that. So you got Peterson and Gore, which is probably in the next 3 years or so. I think Peterson's about 2 years removed from the league. Then you got Tom Brady, who just retired this year. So that means in 5 years, he's on the ballot. So that's a spot that's taken.
Oh, yeah. And sorry, Devin Hester, but Larry Fitzgerald's coming up too.
Gronk's coming up.
In 2 years. Or 3 years. 3 years.
Did he play? Did he play last year?
He played last year, not this year. Yeah.
So you have 4 years off the ballot or 5 years?
It's 5. Yeah.
5. So he's coming due. So that's a spot gone in a couple of years.
You know what made me feel old? Not that he's old or this is old, but for the fact that I think it's either next year or the year after Andrew Luck is eligible. Like, not that he's going to get in, but I was just like, damn, Tom is flying.
Yo, I can't believe he retired at the game.
Yeah, like I thought he was going to come back eventually.
He was on the sideline when they made that announcement. They were booing him when he was walking on the field, a preseason game.
The only thing that tops that is Vontae Davis retiring at halftime.
Yo, he was.
You know, but yeah, what else stood out to you about the Hall of Fame? Like, what about it was great to see Eric Coryell get in. You know, that was great.
That was I like it, but the thing was, I didn't know that they weren't in. So when they made the announcements, it was like, okay, so this is the Veterans Committee announcements. I mean, I know it's a big deal, and I want to diminish it. I think those men out there played well, and they played well for very long time. So I don't want to diminish their accomplishment, but it often feels like the conversation is who didn't get in versus who got in, and then as we progress through guys who played in this era that we are currently absorbed in, it's going to be that conversation is going to be more and more every year, to the point where either they're going to shift it to where more people get in, because it's Eli, Phillip Rivers, Roethlisberger, Drew Brees, Gronk, Tom Brady, all these dudes are all on the ballot at the same time, and it's like we can only get 8 of you in, and then you got to factor in you have other offensive tackles, guards, defensive players that are definitive Hall of Famers, other guys on the ballot. So it's going to be like a bottleneck. And then you figure Matt Ryan's done this year, or Aaron Rodgers is done at the next year, then he's in that mix. So it's just going to be a lot of bodies trying to get spots.
And and all the young cats are going to be talking about Joe Namath got in, so you got to let this person. Lynn Swann got in. It was a different game. And even if you believe that, two wrongs don't make a right. Yeah. But all I'm saying is, you heard it here it ain't that big of an announcement. But if Antonio Gates don't get in next year, I'm on strike from the Hall of Fame. I ain't doing this. You know what I mean?
Antonio Brown is going to be up for it.
2026, yep.
His numbers are.
He ain't getting in though. If he does get in, multiply what they did to T.O. times about.
I mean, they're gonna have to make an actual announcement that says his conduct isn't conducive to someone that's getting in the Hall of Fame.
Somebody told me,
because other guys are gonna get in from his era. I think Antonio Brown, beginning of last season, he hadn't played, or when he hadn't played for a while, they put up a stat. He still had more receiving touchdowns than every wide receiver. And he hadn't played, that was when he played the one game for New England. And didn't play for the rest of the season. And like I kept seeing that stat pop up.
You know, somebody told me that he's better than Jerry Rice.
What did they use to quantify it?
They just said that his dominance just looked better. You know, that he looked more dominant than Jerry Rice, and that he didn't have the all-star team that Jerry Rice had around him to make his life easier.
The Pittsburgh Steelers? They've never been a bad team.
Never.
Because Mike Tomlin hasn't been under 500 the entire time he's there, and he was there the whole time Antonio Brown was there. So, like, they never had a bad team.
And whenever they start out slow, the media still be trying to remove him.
Man. When he was 11-0, they was trying to get him fired. Like, if you don't win it all, you got to get fired. I'm like, so you mean to tell me this guy can win 11 games in a row and not win a championship? And it's like, nah, he's not the guy.
He might be the best coach in the league right now. I mean, obviously Belichick is still there, but I'm just saying as they're performing, as their teams are performing at the moment.
He's like, I run the coaching. He's like, I'll draft the guy if they say he has bad hand placement. He's like, that's coaching. I can teach that.
There you go. So, while we're talking about the NFL and we're talking about the Hall of Fame, let's transition a little bit. So how do you feel about NFL contracts? Are they good? Are players getting screwed over? Where are we nowadays?
I mean, they should go ahead and make a deal with Sherman because those NFL contracts are no better than toilet paper. The money's crazy. Like I said, we'll pull up a couple here as we go back and forth. The money sounds crazy, but I'm just like, what's real? It's like crypto,
right?
It's like you signed a contract. Like we'll start off just real quick with the Derek Carr saga that's going on. He signed a contract extension last April. They felt this play was substandard this season, so now they're trying to cut him or trade him, but they felt so confident with him to give him this extension, like 3 years, $122 million, and then put a no trade clause in it. And then now they put the roster bonus for like February 15th. So if he's still on the team February 15th, he gets like $40 million. So how do you feel that, you know what, Mike, next year, our work relationship is so good, our bond is so good, I'm going to promise you $40 million in 10 months. Because when we signed in April, like, all right, February 15th, we'll give you $40 million. To the point where January comes around, you're like, I'm like, you promised me $40 million. Now all of a sudden, you're just like, you don't know. And then they come to him and say, can you extend the date so we can find a trade partner? He was like, I don't think that's the best thing for me and my family. No, because if I'm on the team February 15th, you got to cut my check.
Right.
Like I said, it's just a very odd set of circumstances. Like considering that they signed him to this deal, and then because whatever you don't perform, don't try to snake me out of the deal. Don't try to wiggle out of it like, let's try to trade him or cut him or arrest him because it was an injury clause. Because if he would have gotten injured and couldn't be physical to join another team on February 15th, he would have gotten paid too. Because there's nothing, because the NFL league year doesn't start till March 15th.
Mm-hmm.
He would have gotten injured in their last game. He wouldn't have been able to pass a physical March 15th. Even if he did pass the physical March 15th, he wouldn't have been able to pass one before then. So he was going to get paid no matter what.
Right.
So that's why they sat him. So now they're trying to extend it out because they owe him $32 million next year. But the roster bonus this year, where's it at? Guaranteed $40.5 million. And they just don't want to do it. So, yeah, NFL contracts are bananas. I like that they're huge. Like the Lamar Jackson deal is going to be crazy. The Patrick Mahomes deal is very team friendly, but he can end up walking away with $450 million. I'm I'm pretty sure they're gonna extend it and switch it up. But it might be so team friendly. And if he keeps up this consistency for the next 5 years, there's no reason why I don't see him not getting like the $210 million he's supposed to get over the next 5 seasons with bonuses, which come every March for him. So his bonuses are 34 million, 40 million. Like his base salary was $1.5 million this season, but his bonus was like 34.5. So he's getting a $34 million check to get him gear, and it's like, all right, man, go out there and play football for, $80,000 a week.
Yeah, that's why it was weird, because I was looking at Russell Wilson's contract. He signed a $245 million contract, and his base salary was $2 million. And his guaranteed money was $124. And I started thinking about it, and for me, this is the ultimate sport of lay your body on the line. I don't know why we're at a point where we're still not at guaranteed. Well, I know the answer to that actually, but we should be at guaranteed contracts. But what confused me was, why was Deshaun Watson fully guaranteed? Like, he had missed a year. He had the whole sexual assault allegations going on.
Potential crimes could be levied against him, and they still gave him a guaranteed contract.
Yes, I started thinking about it. And I don't know why NFL players let these teams off the hook, because I looked back, I just wanted to look at guaranteed contracts and guaranteed money and all that kind of stuff like that. So, I went back to 1996 and I found a good tight end that the Ohio State University fans will remember fondly, Ricky Dudley. He signed a fully guaranteed contract with the Raiders, and I'm so confused that I don't even know what city they were in at the time. But he was playing for the, I'm guessing that was Oakland.
Was it Los?
It might have been. You know what? The Raiders, they're nomads, man. They should call themselves the Las Vegas Nomads. But I was looking at him, and I remember Ricky Dudley because he played basketball. He was 6'7". You would have thought that they broke the bank for him, and especially from a fully guaranteed standpoint, since but when I looked at it, he signed a 5-year, $8.8 million deal. That was the fully guaranteed. And he gave up his signing bonus. Like, how do these teams get away with this?
Because it used to be for the love of the game, and then they started having these CBA meetings, and players started getting a little bit more hip to the game in different sports. Major League Baseball had their strike, basketball had theirs, the holdout, the lockouts, the TV deals started getting huge, and I think the NFL players are now realizing, like, all right, we're not taking these terrible deals, especially the quarterbacks. The quarterback money is ridiculous. I don't know who first started the $200 million extension. I don't know. I know Josh Allen got $265. I don't recall, because I know
Matt Ryan got some money, but it wasn't that.
Yeah, but what was happening is that they started giving these older quarterbacks crazy amount of money per year because the younger quarterbacks were getting 4 and 5 year deals. Mm-hmm. So Carson Wentz got like 4, 130. Jared Goff got pretty much the same deal. Kirk Cousins got franchise tag twice, and then got the $84 million guaranteed from
Minnesota. Yeah, that was, and I believe that one was fully guaranteed.
That was fully guaranteed. So that was $28 a year. So then when Aaron Rodgers was signing his deal, he would do a 3-year deal, $93 million or something like that. Those aren't the exact numbers. So now Matt Ryan, when he does his 3-year deal at 32, it's 3 years, $96 million. So then you give Josh Allen his 5-year extension, and the quarterback pay rate now was 33. So then it started it was a weird thing where the old guys were getting their money because the young guys were getting money. So then the younger guys were getting more money. So now Aaron Rodgers is due something like $60 million. They talking about retiring. He gets $60 million next year.
Yeah, then we had this dumb conversation about Dak. You know what I mean? For a year or whatever it was. I was just like,
2 years. He did Jerry Jones did the same thing. He could have paid Dak something like $29 million after he could have paid Dak 26 or 27 million, and then Kirk Cousins got 28, and everyone said hey Jerry, the new number now is at least 28.
Hey, what's that old saying? Yesterday's price is not today's price.
Yeah. The price of the brick has gone up. Yeah.
Yes.
But then the next day or the next year, you had like Matt Ryan. He gets 30 million. And then you had Carson Wentz. They got 32 million. And then Aaron Rodgers was like, I want 34 million. And then Russell Wilson got 35 million. And Dak still didn't get paid. And it was like, listen, Jerry, the price of the brick is going up. And he held out and held out. And then Dak broke his ankle. And it was like, what do you do? Do you let him go?
Yeah.
And go get money elsewhere, or do you pay him because he sacrificed because he played on a franchise tag, which was getting him like 30 million. So then he signed and he got like 96 million the day he signed. It was some crazy number like that. 96 million because he got his base salary, his bonus, and then the bonus for the extension contract because he ran out because he franchise tagged him.
Mm-hmm. Dak was about to take him to the cleaners. Dak was on some, if a nickel bag gets sold in MacArthur Park, I want in. Since you want to be bringing up, show references and stuff. But but what got me, was the whole like put the players' balls in a vice grip, also known as the franchise tag. Because look, you either want to pay me or you don't. You either want me to be a part of this organization or you don't. Now in the short term, the player makes out because, you get top 5 at that position. So for that season, you make a nice amount of money, but you don't get the long-term security. If you do get hurt, then what? Now they're going to lowball you or whatever the case may be. A lot of balls in that whole little, but anyway, so then when you look at it, you have the non-exclusive franchise tag, which is basically like a restricted free agent where, if you play for the Falcons, Tampa Bay can come to you and say, hey, we'll give you 5 years, 200 million. And Atlanta can either match that, so they get to keep you. Now they get screwed in that scenario because that was probably more than what they were going to pay you. But, if they decide not to match and you go on to Tampa, then Tampa's got to give them 2 first-round picks. So it's like you don't want to do the right thing and you still want to get rewarded anyway.
When you said it that way, it's like, so you want to lowball your player because you have all the leverage. And if the player leaves, you're going to essentially, for lack of a better word, cripple the other team because a first round pick, even if you don't use it as a pick, you can use it to move up. Like say you get, your 27 pick, you can use it to move up and get a guard or a tackle to protect this quarterback or whatever he's to play. Like, nope.
Yeah. And this isn't the NBA. In the NBA, you want that top 3 pick or, whatever the case may be. In the NFL, a first round pick is a first round pick is a first round pick. You can still get a great player at 27 or whatever the case may be.
You can make a lot of moves if you have picks in the NFL in the first 4 rounds, if you have multiple picks.
Yeah, so then
the Jets.
Yeah, so then real quick, and I want you to get into I want you to break down the comparison that you were talking about with the other sports. But, but one of the things that alarmed me that stood out since we talked about Deshaun Watson earlier and you brought up Lamar Jackson was the Ravens owner's reaction to Deshaun Watson getting paid. Steve Biscotti is his name. And, he went on to basically say, why the hell did Texans do that? Because he knew that was going to put him in the ringer, to have to pay up. But, but when I'm looking at this, Lamar Jackson, is in a situation now where he was hurt. So maybe he's lost some leverage, because the Ravens can now come back and we all know it's BS, but the Ravens could come back and say, hey, Tyler Huntley made the Pro Bowl. Like what kind of leverage you think you got? Whatever the case may be. So before Tyler Huntley made the Pro Bowl, I thought the Ravens were going to pay Lamar Jackson, but now I don't even know like what those negotiations even look like.
They are going to franchise tag him. They're going to roll the dice, and they're going to roll the dice, make it on, I think, a couple of things. I don't have any inside information.
Right.
Joe Burrow's next. Joe Burrow, as an individual player and on the Bengals,
break it,
has had immediate success. He was a, pass interference call and a fourth down stop away from being Super Bowl champion. Like, that was a real thing. He had his team in position to win the Super Bowl. And then this year he had his team in position again to go back to the Super Bowl. As far as playoff runs, that's more than what Lamar has done. Joe Burrow has said that he wants to take a team-friendly Patrick Mahomes kind of deal to ensure that they can keep signing weapons, because he has a real bond with Jamar Chase. Like, they went to school together, won that championship together. Like, I think they're real, like, legitimate friends. So I think he wants to look out for him. So he's going to get one of these $500 million Mahomes kind of deals. And then I think they're banking on the Chargers being historically cheap, just like the Bengals, because the Bengals are historically cheap as well, and not go crazy with the deal they give to Herbert. So then they're going to go back to Lamar like, hey, this guy's gotten further than you in the playoffs. This guy has more upside than you, because I guess the negotiations are they're talking face-to-face. So Lamar's $300 million demand, the only, like, that's the rumor. Like, it's somewhere crazy. Like, it's something like, I read something today that they were like $100 million off. I don't know if that's like the total deal or guaranteed money or the bonus or whatever. Like, if you're $100 million off, I'm assuming they want $200 million, you want $300. Because if they're offering $250, you're asking for $350. Then I'm like, that's different. But with everyone getting over $200 million and the price of the brick going up, I can see him negotiating like, hey, I want $300 million, $200 million guaranteed, whatever the case may be. But if these other two guys don't get that, so you have Herbert, Burrow, they don't get that. Lamar plays on a franchise tag. They get some 40-something million this upcoming season. And they don't have the numbers, because not like they have a lot of weapons in Baltimore, and they are getting a new offensive coordinator, whoever they pulled in, if they're still interviewing guys. But that's not a system that he's run.
Yeah, and that's Lamar's argument is, I want an MVP in this situation.
Yeah, his argument is that, yeah, he won an MVP, and I think in a lot of ways that, like, Michael Vick would have been your MVP candidate. Just go out there and be spectacular. But he can't keep doing that if he's trying to sign a 5-year, $275 million extension fully guaranteed. Like I said, I don't know what the numbers are, but
yeah, and that's why they treat this as a zero-sum game, because using your Burrow example, like, as team-friendly as he may want to get, they still may lose T. Higgins.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if he's worried about T. Higgins as so much.
Oh, I know, but just
because T. Higgins is probably already out the door,
mm-hmm.
And then Burrow's contract is only going to kick in. I mean, maybe T. Higgins, maybe they have enough to pay him all, or maybe they just go get him. Got to play a number 2 wide receiver.
Maybe they do a Miami Heat. They all take a team-friendly deal.
They take a team-friendly deal, but the problem is the team-friendly deals aren't player-friendly deals for your other players. They're league-friendly deals or owner-friendly deals. But like I said, these billionaire owners, they can afford to break off another $30 million guaranteed, considering that you're charging $14 for hot dogs. I know that money goes and stuff, but you're charging enough money. You're making enough money. You're getting a 32-way split of the TV money every year. You get a 32-way split of the revenue every year. So you're getting your money back as an owner. So if you want your team to be successful, then you'll make these moves.
So what's the difference between, like, say, the NBA, when it comes to matters like this?
Okay, so if we look at Kevin Durant, he signed his contract, his original one with Brooklyn with the Achilles tear. Then he signed a 4-year extension. NBA contracts are fully guaranteed. So his base salary for 2022, 2023 is $42 million. Then it goes 46, 49, 53. And the thing with the NBA contracts, they are bad for the team because they pay them less money up front and then pay him more money later. That's the big deal with Russ's contract. He got $48 million this year. I think when he signed the extension, it was like $9 or $10 million less. Like in this KD case, it's going to be $11 million more when he is 4 years older.
That's wild. Chris Paul was like that.
Chris Paul's deal is like
John
that.
Wall.
Wall's deal is like that. So it's like Bradley Beal's deal is going to be the same way.
Yeah, if I remember correctly,
one of the years for Dame Lillard, I think he's going to get $60 million.
Yeah, I think one of the years for Chris Paul's was like 47 million or something like that. Like as he was 37 or 38 as he is now.
Yeah. So these deals are player friendly, bad for the owner, but the owner, because the popularity, if they want to just get out and cut bait, they can sell the team for an inflated price. Because when the Clippers went for $2.5 billion, I remember reading an article in Forbes earlier that season that had them at $650 million as a value. Like, I don't think there was a single team that I can recall that was worth over $1 billion. So then when he had to sell and he sold for $2 billion, it's like, oh, the price of the brick went up. So now I think Phoenix probably went for $4 million, Brooklyn $4 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Brooklyn with the same amount of money when he bought them, I think he probably spent like over $2 billion, or at least wanted some change, and probably flipped them for 3.5. So it's like the money is crazy. So, but with the NBA, like I said, it's just because the players are the driving force of the NBA. They have that leverage because no one cares who the coaches are in basketball. I won't say no one. Not as many people care about the coaches or the team. Like you talked about Rihanna earlier. Rihanna has Cleveland jersey, Miami jersey, Laker jersey, all say LeBron James on it. She's at every game, so she's a fan of him as a player.
We are not implying anything.
Nah, LeBron's smarter than that. It's a good, wholesome fan.
That ain't what Pusha T said, but yeah. So like, so what I was gonna say. So next, what about baseball?
Baseball. So baseball contracts also are guaranteed, and they pay what they think they should pay you. It's not really it's not really market driven. It's not like, oh, Bryce Harper is he has a $330 million 13 deal. The next free agent outfielder gets, like they go based off of what do you want to pay, because they don't have a salary cap. So basically it's like, what can you and your team present to the owners and the owners present back and make you happy? So if you look at some of these deals, Mike Trout got 12 years, $426 million.
And can't even get to the playoffs.
Can't get to the playoffs. Aaron Judge got 9 years, $360 million. So he's making $40 million a year, only a 9-year deal.
Can't even make the World Series.
I mean, it's a tough. Baseball is different. They don't really playoffs to get you, but like
I know. I'm just getting some Yankee digs in there.
They gotta sell 81 home games. Like they gotta sell enough tickets for 81 home games. You got to put money into these players in order to get people to the stadium. Because it's the summertime. Like we went to a game in Colorado, man. I was sweating so bad. We had to sit up in the bleachers, and I went when I was sitting in the audience. It was September. I was still sweating. It's like, it's hot, man. Just sitting out in the summertime watching this game. So it takes a lot. But their contracts they're long. They're very long, and it's the same kind of premise as baseball, as basketball. But they have the leverage because you can see their face. NFL players with the mask on. I'm a Falcons fan. 6, defensive guys could walk in. I'll be able to recognize the threat. Grady Jarrett. I'll be able to recognize Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Ritter, the quarterback, Mariota, obviously. But Damiere Byrd, I like him. I don't know if I'd be able to be like, oh, that's Damiere Byrd from the Falcons if I seen him, or the dude Chris Lindstrom that plays guard. He was one of the Walter Payton Man of the Year. I couldn't point him out, and I'm a fan of the team. Whereas I can point Mike Trout out. I know what Bryce Harper looks like, and I think that is part of like the leverage that baseball players and basketball players have. Soccer players the same way. Soccer player contracts are same thing. They're owned by a lot of oil money people, or like Saudi princes, a lot of people to get their money involved in these sports because there's no cap. So you basically just throw all the money I can at it just to be successful. I'm a billionaire. I want to spend 500. I want to spend $1 billion on this team, and I want to do everything to make them the most popular team in the world because I can put that guy on any. I can put him on any advertisement. I can put him in any commercial. You can put Messi in any Gatorade commercial. You can put him in a Nike commercial or Adidas. I think he has a Nike deal. You can put his shoe in any sport. You can make it his cleat, that colorway. I mean, it's just so much you can do when you have a guy, when people can recognize their face. Football players are at such a disadvantage. And I don't think they negotiate as vigorously as the other teams because I don't think they have that leverage. And the guys who are the face of the league, your Burrows, your Mahomes, your Bradys, they're rarely the guys that are also the president of the NFLPA. It's rarely quarterbacks that are out there arguing. It's always like your trench guys, Jeff Saturday, Foxworth. Who else? Like those last two guys I can really recall, like I remember seeing at meetings, like really barking at owners and having these arguments. Quarterbacks don't do that. Tom Brady, I don't think he's ever president of the Players Association. So I think the people who get paid, the guys, the big fish, they don't really engage in the money talks as much as the guys who really need it.
And you remember that point that we were talking about earlier about the Chris Pauls and the John Walls and all that kind of stuff. Like that kind of went in line when Chris Paul was the president. So he looked out for the older guys there because I know in the NBA, there's a big thing about veterans feeling aged out, to some degree, with the young bodies always replacing them. So he was able to do that. And I know now, you have Kyrie as the vice president. You got Jaylen Brown as the president. CJ McCollum's involved. So they have a strong foundation.
A note real quick on Jaylen Brown. Like he was like top of his, like he graduated from like one college in like 3 years and went to another one that was like summa cum laude there. The people,
he went to Berkeley.
One of his knocks was, is he too smart to stay in the NBA? Like teams were afraid to draft him because one of his knocks was he's too smart to stick around.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, it was crazy because they were worried that he was just going to be like, you know what? This isn't for me. Or he's going to recognize like this is the BS, and now he's the president of the Players Association.
Yeah.
Having those conversations. So yeah, you're not going to be able to pull the wool over his eyes.
Yeah, and I was real. I don't know if happy is the right word. I don't want to get us in trouble, but it was interesting to see him stick up for Kyrie the way that he did when that situation went on earlier this season. Where it was easy to just turn your back and join, everybody wanting their pound of flesh or whatever it was. Like he kept it.
A lot of people wanted their pound of flesh.
Yeah, so he kept it pretty strategic of like, I'm not necessarily defending what he did, but I know who this dude is. And
he did the same thing with Kanye.
Yeah, like I can't let y'all like just destroy this person. I've had personal dealings with this person, and I know that this person is not what you're trying to make him to be. I can't defend what he did in this situation.
Like what you guys are leveraging on him is false, and he said it, and he said it with intelligence. And then if you approached him, he would have handled it the same way. So you can't. It doesn't move the needle when someone handles themselves appropriately. Like a friend of mine used to say, empty wagon makes the most noise. He's not one of those guys. He's somebody who's like, okay, I'm going to say this. I'm going to put it out on social media. And if you ask me about it, I'll be able to articulate that same feeling as well, to the point where you would be dumb to continue to ask me questions because it's like he just figured it out. Those are the kind of people you need in those positions. You need those thinkers and people who want to be in a position and are great thinkers. Some people just want to be in a position for the sake of just leadership and the titles and the potential claim that comes with that. Because you can tell by some of these bad deals they had signed over the years. But this current NFLPA, you have to get the insurance portion figured out and the guaranteed contracts. Even if you put a cap on it, just like, listen, quarterbacks, we can't pay you more than $200 million. Cool. If that's the monetary number, $200 million, we go 3 years, $200 million, fully guaranteed. Let's go play football.
I wish I could have been in the room when they had the conversation about the 17th game. That would have been an interesting
because they wanted 18. I remember Ray Lewis was against it. They wanted 18 games.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting
$1 billion
conversation to see.
Game, the 17th game generates $1 billion for the owners to split the 32 owners. Just that one extra game. That's why they wanted the 2 games, and they wanted to keep the 4 preseason games and still get the 18 games
And the extra playoff team.
Extra playoff teams. They just wanted as many games because at that rate, essentially, it's probably $1 billion a week.
And you saw even after the Damar Hamlin situation happened, they were thinking about adding another team to this year's playoffs. You know,
yeah, so 15 teams out of 32 teams, 50% of the league in the playoffs.
Yeah, so you know, and on that note, you know, it was so great to see Damar Hamlin last night. You know, it was so great to see him speaking and just having a good time, being able to publicly, you know, thank the people that helped save his life, and just to see him walking around again, I think was real positive. And, you know, not even for the league in general, but just for like humanity in general. It was great to see him.
I like they brought everybody out. Like they brought both staffs and the staff from the hospital. Yeah, I was emotional. I'm not gonna front. Like that was like, cause I saw him lined up and I saw the mic and I was like, they better not have these people here. And he's not. But if they bring him out, I'm like, man, I know material. But if they bring him out, I'm like, here it come. Here come the waterworks. Ever since my son popped out, I'm like, oh, here we go. And you're like this, you know, you got to wipe your whole face with your hand.
Yeah, and hopefully that was a moment that even the Cincinnati Bengals can't be mad anymore.
Yo, they probably still gonna do the coin toss. Somebody did a CPR celebration.
Yeah, that was the Steelers. Yep, and so I defended the Steelers when they did that because that wasn't the first time that the Steelers had done that. You know what I mean? That was something that they had done throughout the season. The timing was just awful.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
You scratch that. That should have been Mike Tomlin knows. He probably listen, man. Now y'all come on something else.
Yep.
Some jumping jacks or something, some high knees. It would come to a different kind of celebration. But
I'm telling you, man, if Cincinnati do another coin toss touchdown celebration, I'm not watching any of their games next year. You know what I mean? Man, like it's over with.
But Cincinnati games, they're gonna be on Monday Night Football. It's gonna be somehow they're gonna figure out a way to get a rematch between Kansas City and Buffalo and Kansas City and Cincinnati. I don't know like what schedule, how they're gonna do it. They're going to have, if Damar Hamlin comes back, that game's going to be on TV. You're going to get a Miami, Kansas City somehow. Who else? If Aaron Rodgers gets traded to the Jets, you can go ahead and book yourself a Green Bay, New York Jets game. I don't know how they're going to make it work. They'll figure out. Like, that's why they got that 17th game, I think, for that kind of stuff.
For the storyline moment.
Storyline games happen. We can make another Broncos versus Seattle game if they want.
Yeah.
Got to do a do-over because last year was terrible.
So what's the storyline that you want to get off your chest?
I want to give out flowers because we normally have like something that bothered us. So I'm like, I want to give out some flowers to the guy that's been getting his flowers all week, LeBron James. You know, the guy hit the fadeaway jump shot with his kids in the pictures. Like, I'm gonna say this. I think he went into that game like, I'm doing this tonight. I need y'all to sit in the hoop because it was Bronny, Bryce, and Phil Knight sitting in the hoop. Funny thing, Bronny and Bryce were both wearing Jordans. Sit next to Phil Knight. You got to check out the trailer for Air, Matt Damon, Viola Davis, Ben Affleck. I think it's going to be a dope movie. Check that trailer out. They're obviously not paying, but check the trailer out. I like the shot choice. I like Bryant in the paint calling for the ball. That just makes me chuckle every time. But what I don't like the GOAT talk, because if he didn't make that shot and you said, well, if he would have made that shot, he'd been the GOAT, then like that doesn't make any sense. Similar to my championship argument earlier, I'm consistent from anything else. I didn't like the people. I saw a meme where it had when Jordan shot the jumper over Brian Russell against Utah in the Delta Arena, and then the LeBron picture, like, look at all these people with their phones out. Like, there was no cell phones in '96 when he hit the last shot. Like, stop it. Like that's not a thing. So like that was bothering me, or like with some of the comments. That's the only thing that was bothering me. But ultimately, man, it's like it's just if you think about how long you have to play a sport and at the level you have to play it to score that many points. When basketball pundits, players, other legends that played with Kareem were like, "Oh, this record will never get broken." Like we've had this conversation about Tom Brady's yardage and touchdowns for Super Bowls. Like they'll never get broken. Imagine we're 70 and somebody's about to win their 9th Super Bowl. We're just like, what? Like I remember we had this conversation in 2023. It was like no one was gonna get the 9. It's like you got a guy, no one was gonna get the 7, or no one's gonna pass LeBron. Like we have these, no one's gonna pass John Stockton. We can say all of these things, and at some point, maybe they will. So it was good to see that and watch that game play out. So yeah, I just want to give flowers to all-time scorer leader in NBA history. Already has the playoffs and total points and everything else. Is just, for a guy that's not a scorer, it's pretty dope.
Congrats, LeBron. And I'll just leave it at that. All right. So, I was stuck today, because I had all this rage inside of me. And it was fitting that Raph decided to give some flowers because, I want to give some credit to some people. This week, the NBA trade deadline came up. Kyrie Irving was on the move. A person like me said, well, hey, what's Brooklyn going to do to get somebody else in there with Durant? And then little did I know, Brooklyn said, hey, well, maybe Durant said, hey, you get me up out of here. So as I was asleep, I got a text message at about 1:15 in the morning from my homeboy, Chris Labby, shout out Colorado Springs, text, and all the text said was KD to Phoenix. Wow. And, I'm like wiping my eye. I'm like, what? Like, whatever. I laid back down. But then that sports person in me was like, hold up, what? I jumped back up, got on Facebook, got on Twitter, got on TV. And I was just like, whoa, what just happened? So the reason that stood out to me is because you've heard me mention a few times on a few different episodes that I fear nobody in the West. Ja Morant didn't either, but then they started getting their ass whooped. So maybe he has a healthy respect at least now.
15 against the West.
But I looked back at it and I said, you know what, Phoenix Suns, congratulations. Because even if you don't win the title this year, even if you don't win the title next year, you went out and grabbed the brass ring, so to speak. There was an opening in the West, no dominant team, nobody that stands out. And you said, hey, you know what? We're going to get somebody that we believe can put us over the top and put us in a position to win the championship. Because guess what, Memphis? Luke Kennard ain't going to do it. I told you I love the Clippers moves, but getting Eric Gordon and Bones Highland might not do it. So Phoenix, congratulations on having the foresight and the ability to make the phone call to Brooklyn to go get a top 5 player in the league, that is at the very least the best player in the West at this moment, when he comes back from injury at least, but maybe not at this moment. But he'll probably be the best player in the playoffs, unless Steph decides to stop getting hurt. So, Phoenix Suns, I don't know if you're going to win the title this year, but I'm going to be watching, and I think that you have a very good chance. So, thank you for not sitting by idly while bum teams like the Chicago Bulls show us why they're the bums that they are. So, thank you very much for adding excitement to this season, because I love watching the NBA, but I feel like this year's been a little quiet. So, thank you for bringing that spark back. I wanted to get that off my chest because, I wanted to show that I have the ability to be positive, even though I still got some digs in there too. But, Phoenix Suns, congratulations. Thank you, Phoenix Suns. Man. But yeah, so here we are at the end of another episode, like any parting shots?
Now I'm excited for this weekend. I'm excited to start figuring out these draft prospects and who they're going to highlight and, who they're going to be talking about for the next couple of months. I believe the draft this year is in Kansas City in April. I have a friend who lives out there. Might need to do a boys trip I'm trying to do something every month. People go out there, do something every month for yourself. Some for yourself, some with your family. Go out there, go somewhere we can take some good pictures. This month for me, like I said, I'm going back to Utah. Next month, I'm heading up to Vermont. Then I need something to do for April. So April might be the draft in Kansas City. My friend just bought a house, got married. So, you got to find time to find joy in these times. This is something that brings me joy. We talk about it all week. We plan it all out, and we're still able to live our lives and be with our families and do our jobs. But having this time, we set up about 3 hours, a couple of times a week to just have these conversations, and we're just recording them. So find your joy, enjoy yourself, man. We're above ground, breathing this oxygen. Let's have a little fun while you're up here. So do that. Follow me on Instagram, the Brooklyn Winners Initiative. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook. You can follow the Sports Reports as Ordered on Instagram. You can follow me at Twitter, Fear My Wrath. I'm out here just having a good time. I'm having a good time with my friends and family, and just, appreciate everybody sharing this, watching the videos. So.
All right. And you can find me on Instagram at MLDub25. You can find me on Twitter at 2Bit Reports. I appreciate the statement of joy there because, that's something that I struggled with for a long time, being in the military, deploying, and all these opportunities that were great times. We met some great people. It did take away just from life, from the standpoint of being able to enjoy. So it's nice to let your hair down, just have fun. It's okay to have fun. You don't have to save the world all the time. So, thank you everybody for tuning in. Please share with your friends. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. Like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And before I go, shout out to the hometown Baltimore. Shout out to Alexandria. Shout out to Massawa for holding us down. I appreciate that. Shout out to Red Bull. Shout out to Tom Fernelli. Shout out to Chip Patterson and ESPN. Real quick, ESPN. Pay my girl Mina Kimes. She's earned it. Mina, you don't take any less than you deserve because you deserve the world.
ESPN, you can pay us too.
And you could pay us too, ESPN, while you at it. You know what I'm saying? Fox, CBS, holla at us, But we out of here. It's Friday. Super Bowl is on Sunday. Raph's got the Chiefs. I got the Eagles. I really want the Chiefs to win because I'm a Commander fan. But, I just had to, look at the numbers and everything. We are out of here, and we will see you on Tuesday night. Peace.